Okay, let's continue our discussion. I think we're done with problem number one. We're to solve number two. Number two is about nominal rates and effective rates. We have discussed those concepts before in the previous video. I hope you understood the different concepts. Anyway, maybe using this example, we can explain it further. Okay, number two, find the nominal rate which, if converted quarterly, could be used instead of 12% compounded monthly. So what is the corresponding effective rate? Okay, so find the nominal rate. So we're solving for the nominal rate. So originally, eh, it has the nominal rate is 12% compounded monthly. So we are to convert that to compounded quarterly. So what should be the corresponding nominal rate? So equal, for this to happen, the effective rates of both conditions should be the same. So let's denote R to be the unknown nominal rate at compounded quarterly. So nominal rate compounded quarterly. So the effective rate, let's say EF at R percent compounded quarterly is equal to, we have, let's say EF sub 4 na lang. 4 indicates that it is compounded quarterly. So EF sub 4 is equal to 1 plus R over 4, the unknown nominal rate over 4. We divide by 4 since it is compounded quarterly, raised to 4, and then minus 1. So that is the effective rate compounded quarterly with our percent nominal rate compounded quarterly. Now, the effective rate at 12% compounded monthly. So the 12%, the nominal rate is 12% in this case. So the effective rate at 12% compounded monthly. So let's say EF sub 12 indicates that it is compounded monthly since we have 12 months in a year, is equal to 1 plus 12% in decimal form divided by 12 raised to 12 minus 1. So for the yun na. So equate natin, I've said kanina, they should have the same effective rates. Parehas dapat yung effective rates nila. I will try to compare later on kasi we are also to solve for the corresponding effective rate. So the effective rate should be the same, okay, so that we can solve for the unknown nominal rate. So equate natin yung dalawa. So EF sub 4 should be equal to EF sub 12. So it's equal to, so 1 plus R over 4 minus 1 is equal to 1 plus 0.12 over 12 raised to 12 minus 1. So the nominal rate is equal to, we have 0.12 or is equal to 12%, 12.12% compounded quarterly. So the corresponding nominal rate, if it's compounded quarterly, is 12.12%. So kung pag compounded monthly siya, the nominal rate is 12%. Okay? So, what is the corresponding effective rate? So, ano yung effective rate natin when it is compounded quarterly? That should be equal to, ano yung formula natin for effective rate? That is 1 plus R, which is 12.12%. It should be in decimal form over 4 raised to 4 minus 1. So, the effective rate is equal to, that's equivalent to 0.1268, or that is equal to 12.68%. This is the effective rate. Let's see if equal sila sa ano. So ito yung effective rate. Equal ba siya? Kasi we have equated the two functions or equations before. Equal ba siya sa effective rate na at 12%, at the 12% compounded monthly? So EF4, 12 I should say. Let's check if they are equal. It's equivalent to 1 plus 0.12 over 12 raised to 12 minus 1. So the effective rate at 12% compounded monthly is equal to, parehas din, that is equivalent to 0.1268, or that is 12.68%. So the corresponding effective rate is 12.68%. So equal silang dalawa. So yung isang, the nominal rate is 12%. The other one, if it's compounded quarterly, that should be equal to 12.12%. Okay, so that is problem number 2. Let's proceed to problem number 3. Okay, number 3, suppose that the interest rate is 10% per year, compounded annually. What is the minimum amount of money what would have to be invested for a 2-year period in order to earn 15,000 in interest? So the interest should be 15,000. So ano dapat yung i-invest ko, no? Ngayon, so that after 2 years may ma-earn ako na interest na 15,000 pesos. That's the problem. Okay, let's solve number 3. Suppose that the interest rate is 10% per year, compounded annually. What is the minimum amount of money that would have to be invested for a 2-year period in order to earn 15,000 pesos in interest? So the interest should be 15,000. I think I have explained this impossibly, but okay, so the rate is 10% compounded annually. So annually ito. And then 2 years. N is 2 years. The interest in 2 years is 15,000. Okay. The interest in 2 years is 15,000. So, ano dapat yung i-invest ko initially or today, so that after 2 years ay meron akong kikitain na 15,000 at 10% rate of interest annually. So we are solving for the present worth. No? So how do we solve this? So ang future worth natin, so from our previous discussions before, when we discussed about interest, we know that the future worth is equal to the present worth, or the principal plus the interest. So the interest may be in terms of simple or compound interest. So in this case, we are dealing with compound interest. So plus the interest after the period, which is 2 years, that is 15,000 pesos. Okay, so yun. So future worth is the principal or the present worth plus the interest. So we are solving for the present worth or yung principal, yung amount na i-invest natin so that after 2 years meron tayong interest or may kikitain yung pera natin na 15,000. Okay? So the present worth is equal to, so please i-review na lang natin yung formulas before na diniscuss natin. It's equivalent to F 1 plus I raised to negative N. Since we are solving for the present worth of the money in the future, no? So i-transfer natin. Pwede tayong mag-travel in time. Yung future, nagawin natin present. Yan. So, if this is the case, the present worth then. So, if F is equal to P plus 15,000, then that is equivalent to, substitute lang natin yung value nito. That's P plus 15,000 times 1 plus I raised to negative N. So we are solving for the initial amount or the present worth or the principal. No? So that's equivalent to one plus I. The interest is 10 years. It should be in its decimal form. Negative N raised to negative N. N is 2 years. So compounded annually siya. So basically that is equivalent to 2 years. So the present worth or the principal, our initial investment should be 71,428.571. So ito yung i-invest natin initially so that after 2 years meron tayong kikitain na 15,000 in interest at 10% rate of interest annually. Okay? So that is problem number 3. Ayan. Next is problem number 4. Okay, problem number 4. If 3,000 pesos is placed in an account. Wrong. At 5% and is compounded quarterly for 5 years, how much is the account at the end of 5 years? So we are solving for the future worth of this 3,000 peso principal. Okay, at 5% interest compounded quarterly for at the end of 5 years. So future worth is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N. Since it is compounded quarterly, make sure that the interest is in terms of it follows the number of compounding per year, no? And the number of N here should also follow in terms of the compounding. Okay, so there is a different formula in your module, but I think it would be to be consistent, we will just be using this formula. Okay, so the future worth, so after 5 years, so let's try to identify muna yung mga given quantities or items in the problem. So the principal is 3,000 pesos. The interest is I is equal to 5% compounded quarterly for N is 5 years, so which means that since it is compounded quarterly, so every year pag quarterly, pag sinabing quarter, 4 na beses, so 4 times a year. So basically, N would be 5 years, but since it is compounded quarterly, then we need to multiply it by 4. So this is 20 20. Or that is 4 times 5. So that's basically 20. So I here is 5% divided by compounded quarterly, so 4. So 5% here is annual, since it is compounded quarterly, and there are 4 quarters in a year from the word quarter, so apat. So we need to divide it by 4. Okay? So yeah. So F, then the future work is equal to the principal 1 plus I is 5%, or that's 0.05 divided by 4 raised to n, which is 5 years in this case. Since quarterly siya, magiging 20 years na siya. That is equal to 5 times 4 since quarterly. So quarterly. So the future worth, so after 5 years, yung principal natin na 3,000, ang halaga niya ay 3,846.2. So yan yung kanyang halaga after 5 years. Okay? So take note, wala kang halaga sa kanya kung wala siyang interest sa'yo. Okay. So next, problem number 5. Okay, number 5, and perhaps the last sample problem for this particular lesson or topic. Then I will be uploading an activity for a series of problems for you to solve. Okay, number 5. A 200,000 loan was originally made at 8% simple interest for 4 years. Originally. Okay. At the end of this period, the loan was extended for 3 years without the interest being paid, but the new interest rate was made 10% compounded semi-annually. How much should the borrower pay at the end of 7 years? So since we have medyo complicated na cash flow, I think it would be better if we draw the cash flow diagram. And let's try to analyze the situation. So for the first 4 years, simple interest. Okay? So for the first 4 years, hindi nakabayad yung borrower. So they had an agreement with the the one who gave him loan na extend for 3 years. So the first 4 years, simple interest lang siya. So 8% simple interest for the first 4 years, and then hindi siya nagbayad, extend na for 3 years but with different payment terms naman ngayon. Shucks. So the new interest rate is 10% compounded semi-annually for the next 3 years. So how much should the borrower pay at the end of 7 years? So originally 4 years, naging 7 years yung payment. Okay. So magkano ang babayaran ng borrower after 7 years? Okay, first is we need to solve, since we have two different terms here, payment terms. Solve muna natin yung amount ng pera after 4 years, yung simple interest, and after that i-compute natin yung amount ng pera after 7 years using yung bagong term, payment term natin. Okay, so first we need to solve for the amount or the future worth of the principal after 4 years. So after 4 years, let's say f sub 4, the future worth after 4 years is equal to simple interest lang ito. So that's equal to the principal is 200,000. N is 4 years, so 4. And the interest rate is 8% annually. It should be in decimal form. Okay. So the amount of the principal after 4 years is equal to 264,000. So ang interest niya, so initially we have 200,000. So after 4 years, meron siyang interest na 64,000. So yung 200,000 naging 264,000 at 8% simple interest for 4 years. Okay, so hindi niya nabayaran. So sabi niya extend natin hanggang 7 years. So meron siyang 3-year, 3 taon na extension. Okay, so they have agreed na ang bagong interest ngayon ay 10% compounded semi-annually. Okay, so using this amount, hindi yung initial na 200,000 So yung amount natin after 4 years, that would be our principal now. So F sub 7, so F sub 7, so the amount after 7 years is equal to, so ang principal natin ngayon ay yung na-accumulate yung 200,000 plus the accumulated interest after 4 years. So F sub 4 times 1 plus I raised to N. Okay. So we have 264,000. Hindi yata kasya sa ito na lang, lilipat natin dito. So it's equivalent to so our principal is 264,000 1 plus I. So ang nominal rate natin ay 10% nominal rate. So compounded semi-annually, so 0.1 divided by 2. So semi-annual, so dalawa, twice a year, times N. N here is we have an extension of 3 years, but since it is compounded semi-annually, multiply natin ng 2. So 3 years times 2. So 3 years times 2. So itong 2 dyan indicates that it is compounded semi-annually. So F sub 7, after 7 years, the amount is equal to 300. Laki na. 53,785.2491 pesos. So yan yung amount after 7 years. So from 200,000 naging 353,785 pesos, no? So yan. So that's the answer for problem number 5. Okay, so if you have any questions, you may post your questions in my comment section, or you may also raise your questions sa group chat, or you can message me through MBLE. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson.